My guest today is no stranger to hard times. He was born in the Great Depression, lost a son, Jimmy, to suicide, a son-in-law to heart attack, and another son-in-law to cancer. In the last 13 months alone, he lost his wife, two of his best friends, and sold the house of 67 years that he raised his family in. Despite all this, his positive attitude and zest for life pours out of him. He attributes this to the 4 F's: faith, family, friends, and fortitude. He's such an inspiration to me that I named my firstborn son after him. Without further ado, my grandfather, Sherman Monty Montgomery.
See, I have to write about it and investigate it to understand it. And once I found out how I can control depression, I don't get depressed anymore. Not for at least for a long time. I'll get depressed. I lost just two good friends here recently, and I was very depressed on that. And it took me probably 3 times reading the depression book to help me get back on track again. But like I say, you're the only one that can heal yourself. You've got to make it up in your mind, am I going to be depressed or am I going to be positive? And I like to be positive, and then I can become not depressed anymore.
I think it's empowering. I think it's a really empowering message.
It's very important. And I think of all the books that I've written, I think I hold that one the best book I ever wrote for myself anyhow. I don't know if it'll help anyone else, but you have to understand it. You got to understand the rules. There's certain rules. There's 4 issues that help me get well. They call them the 4 F's. Do you want me to name them?
I would love to hear them. I can name them, but I'd love to hear it from you.
Oh, okay. Well, the first one is faith.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have faith, you're in a hard road, I'll tell you, because faith was the thing that helped me get through things. And I put an awful lot of effort on my faith. The next thing is family. Family is very important. But the only trouble is with family, sometimes the family members are very depressed too. But it's helpful if you get together as a family and try to solve the problem as a family, because the problem affects you all in the family. The next would be faith, family, friends. Friends are extremely important. Friends give you a ability for logic, which you don't normally have with your family, with that going through the same depression. They even though they love you and they feel the pain, they can think clearly and make better decisions. And one of the things I want to make very important: when you're depressed, don't make any important decisions, because they're going to be failures. And that's where a friend, a neighbor, can help you use some common sense, and that's very important.
Yeah,
I think probably, huh?
I was going to say, I think you wrote, when you were talking about friends, one of the things that really stood out to me that made a lot of sense was they're detached.
Okay,
they're detached from the situation, and they don't,
yes,
they have a perspective that's not like dead on. They're not going through it or in it like a family member might be.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I think, as I said there too, friends were the people that got grandma back on track. Get her to go to bingo. She didn't want to go to bingo. She didn't want to do anything. She just wanted to be depressed all the time. And they were very helpful. But I think other than your faith, I think the next one is fortitude. That's extremely important. Because I say, you got to realize, and you got to believe it, you're the one who can heal yourself. And I've seen that so many times people try to come out of depression, but they don't know the rules. You got to heal yourself, because someone they can work with you and everything, but they can't heal you. They can make advice, they can give you suggestions, but you're the one that has to decide, do you want to be depressed or not depressed? And if you don't say you don't want to depress and work toward it, getting away from it, you're never going to get it. You're going to be depressed all the time.
Well, and like I was saying, it's a really empowering message, and it's empowering to me for a lot of reasons. But the big one is it's personal accountability, right? And I think when you can at least have the perspective that, look, maybe you can't fix depression for yourself. Maybe you can't make it completely go away. And maybe you shouldn't make it go away, right? It's probably healthy to go through all the stages of depression. But I think just understanding that you have some control over it. Because I think a lot of people get depressed because they feel like they've lost control. Someone dies. They couldn't do anything to fix that situation.
I know.
And I think losing control forces that downward spiral in terms of, well, if I couldn't control the act that has depressed me, then how can I control my reaction to it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I think the way you lay it out in terms of these 4 F's, faith, family, friendship, fortitude, I think it's a great framework for people to understand that, while something happened that's out of your control, there's things that you can control. And you can control your reaction in a way, maybe not fully, but you're going to need these tools, and these tools are all around you. They're all around you. Family's there for you all the time, and maybe you don't come from, a really supportive family, but
That's
there's
difficult.
people.
Makes it difficult when you don't have a supportive family. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
How do you deal with depression?
yeah. So, you know, proactively, um, a lot like you, I think. I'm very positive.
Well,
I have a really,
that's the key word.
yeah, I have a positive outlook. Yeah, almost to the point where you could say like, um, one of my faults is this like eternal optimism. I just,
That's very good.
yeah, and
No, that's not a
I think the
fault.
world's a great
That's a
place.
positive.
Yeah, but I think I
Yeah.
learned it. I think I learned it partly from you.
Well, I hope
And
so.
I think I learned it from,
Say that.
yeah, and I think I learned it from Dad. I think
Yeah.
that you look at,
Your dad had a very positive attitude.
yeah, and I think
I
you
was
look
very
at
proud of
people.
him.
I know. Look, I think you look at people who you are surrounded with.
Mhm.
I've seen more of you than almost anyone in my life, right? And the same with Dad. And I
Is that a
think
good,
that
bad, or good or bad?
that's good. That's good. But it rubs
Oh,
off,
that's nice to say.
and as long as I've known you, which is my entire life, I look up to you, and I look up to Dad, and I look up to all these other family members that we have, and look, our lives were filled with love and laughter. And when your lives are filled with love and laughter, you have a really interesting perspective, and that perspective is things can be good. Things can be
Oh,
good.
yeah.
And when things come up,
They're only good if you make them good.
yeah,
Think of it. If you if you don't if you if you don't make things good, they won't become good. Someone else will make them for you. And you've got to make yourself accept that everything is good in life. I mean, it is if you look at it the right way. I mean, a death of a person is not a happy thing or a good thing, but dealing with it and being able to deal with it is a beautiful thing. And if you can't do that, you're lost, and you're going to suffer and suffer and suffer. And it's only you can decide: do I want to be happy, or I don't want to be happy? And I'll tell you, you tell me anyone, I don't care who is a doctor or anybody. I know I've gone through all of it. I've gone through all the depression anybody can. I probably had more depression than most people, but I've learned the secret, and that's not to let myself get depressed. Be positive.
yeah.
But if you're a negative person, you can't deal with it.
Yeah, so let's look at that. So, um, you say you've been through a lot of depression, right? I don't
Yep.
think people understand how much depression that could be. So first of all, you're born in the Great Depression. Well, that's one way
Yep.
to look at it. You're born in the Great Depression, so you're
Well,
born
it was.
into depression, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I even
so
mentioned that in my book, my life
yeah,
story.
exactly.
I
So that's
became
step one.
depressed.
So tell me
But I
about
also
just tell me
said,
tell me about your just super early childhood, right? So
okay,
you're born in the Great Depression. Tell me about your mom and your dad.
okay. I'm born in depression, and but you really don't know when you're young, when you don't have anything, and you never had anything, then you don't miss it. But as you get older and you have start stuff, and then you lose stuff, then you become depressed. Uh, my childhood was very good, and till my mother and father got divorced. That was a thing that really threw me off into a tither.
Yeah, how old were
And
you then?
huh?
How old were you then?
11 years old.
11.
Yep. And they asked me a story one time to write a book. What was the one thing you wanted to learn from your parents? And I wrote a story on it saying, don't get divorced. And I swore when I was 11 years old that I would never get divorced. And I never have, and I wouldn't. I was just something I did when I was 11 years old. And then the next thing, when they got divorced, I moved around, I don't know how many times, different places. Oh, then the next thing that happened, my mother got a job babysitting a family and in Rochester, and they had a new child. My sister went with my father because she went out to Penfield because she wanted to finish school in Penfield.
Mm-hmm.
I went with my mother, and she got a job babysitting 24/7. And we had an apartment above the room. It was an attic, made into an attic, and everything was going fine. I was going to school, and one night I woke up and I saw smoke in the room. And I got up, and I woke my mother up. She was on the other side. We had an electric fan between us, and it was a heater fan, and it was smoking. So I got my mother up, and we went out and stand out in the hallway. My mother opened the window, and for some reason, she started running water in the tub. I don't know if you want to take a bath or something. But anyhow, we're standing out there, and I said, Mom, I thought you turned the light off. She says, I did. Well, I see light in there. So I opened the door, and my whole bed was on fire.
Oh, man.
Burning right up. And so we ran downstairs. She got the mother out. I got the baby, and her father, the husband, was working. So he was already at work. So we ran out. It was about zero temperature out there. And I handed the baby to her mother, and I ran back in the house to get the dog out. Because that's what really woke me up. The dog was barking. So I ran out. When I came out of the house with the dog, the woman was running down the street screaming with the baby. I had to run down, get her, bring her back. And I only had one slipper on. It was 0 degrees out. I think that's where I froze my foot. But anyhow, then I gave the baby to my mother and took the woman back so my mother could hold her so she wouldn't run again. I ran across the street, banging on the front door, and someone come up, what the hell do you want? Oh my goodness, you could see our house was on fire. By that time we ran out the front door, the window blew out. Our window.
So it was like engulfed.
It was it was everything. We lost everything. All I had is one slipper and my pajamas. My mother had 2 slippers and 2 pajamas. So everything else was gone.
She had double the stuff you had then.
So that would throw some depression at you, I think. And but I didn't really know how to deal with it until I think I got married. And I think my wife was my salvation. And she helped me find my faith and everything. So things started to change around for me. So I've had pretty good luck since I got married. My wife put up with me, and
it's not like you got married late either. How old were you when you got married?
21, I think, 21. My wife was, when I first met her, she was 14, but I didn't think I was going to marry her. That's another thing. When I went in the service, and when I came out of the service, I broke up with my girlfriend. Anyhow, and so my sister felt sorry for me. So she says, why don't you take out Marianne, who you met years ago? And I said, no, she was just a little skinny kid, 14 years old. she said, well, she's not a skinny kid anymore. She's very pretty, and she's going to graduate this year. And I says, no, I don't know. All I can think of this little skinny little girl, 14-year-old. And she convinced me, and we said, let's go out. We'll go out with a double date with my brother-in-law, and my sister, Mary Ann. And from that was on, our story was over. We were hooked. Boy, I'll tell you, she was a beautiful young lady, and she was a wonderful wife.
Did you know? Did you know right on that date, or
I beg your pardon?
did you know that you were going to marry her? You loved her like right on that date, or did it take some time?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, I did. I did. I actually knew that. In fact, when I wrote the story on the love of my life, I knew that day. Well, I tell you, there was a problem. We almost broke up because I wasn't Catholic and she was Catholic, and I wasn't. And at that time, I went to church with her a couple times, but the church was different. It was one person was in Latin. The other thing, the priest was facing the altar and not the congregation. And I just thought that was very cold. And so we was out driving one night. We started talking religion. I knew that was going to be a problem. And she said that, I told her, I don't think I can get married. And she started crying. And I felt bad. And I got upset. I said, I don't think I can become a Catholic. So she didn't want to go home. And I was afraid to take her home because she was crying so much. Her father thought I hurt her. He would kill me. So I took her over to her girlfriend's house. And on the way home, I was driving home. I thought, gee, I felt so bad because I got her upset because I really liked her. I thought she was the woman I wanted to marry. And so I didn't sleep good that night, but I called her next morning. I says, I want to talk to you, see if we can work something out. And I came up with a solution. Excuse me. And I decided, I said, I thought maybe I'll go talk to Father Fleming and see if he has any suggestion. She was so excited. She kissed me, and so the best kiss I ever think I had. But we went over to church. We went to talk to Father Fleming, and he came up with all the different suggestions, but the only one that seemed to work, that if I took instructions on Catholic faith, he says, you got to understand it. You don't understand it. That's the problem. And I said, you're right. I really don't. So we agreed to. I asked him, I said, okay, I'll take instructions. And he said, I will even teach you. Of course, I was in the service at that time, and I had 3-day passes. That once a month I got a 3-day pass, and I could come home on that 3-day pass. And he said, I will teach you while you come home on the 3-day pass. It'll make the thing. And it was the best thing I ever did in my life, other than marrying my wife. I learned the faith. I came in and I believed it. And between my wife, her parents, I became a Catholic, and I enjoyed it. In fact, her mother and father were my sponsors. And it was the greatest time when I went to confirmation and had the first time I had the Eucharist. And from that day on, it's changed my life. I have become hopefully, between my wife and my faith, has changed me completely.
Yeah.
I hope for the best.
Yeah. I mean, faith is pretty powerful, and the fact that you had said faith is one of the 4 F's of overcoming depression. Obviously it's played a really big part in your life, and I think
it is.
I think faith can come in a lot of ways, and I think obviously the Catholic faith is, I'm Catholic, obviously you're Catholic. I think it's a phenomenal obviously religion, but community, and growing up in the Catholic Church was a great experience for me. But I think faith, in terms of bringing it back to one of the 4 F's, and I don't know that you kind of spelled this out, but I'm curious to get your opinion on it. Because when I think of faith in this regard, I kind of think of it as like this overarching purpose. And the way that I would think about that and kind of articulate it is that if you're looking to overcome something, uh, some sort of adversity, right? Depression being the one we're talking about.
Hmm.
If you have purpose and understanding that not this one thing is in front of you, you have to have this perspective that way out in the distance, right? And in this case, the heavens, right? This is way past, this is not in the foreground of what you're going through. This is well past it, out in the distance. And it's something where if you're like looking out in the distance, you can kind of focus far out onto a mountain. But when you're focused on that mountain, kind of everything else in front of you is blurry, right? But if you're focused on the foreground, if you're focused on something like what's causing this depression, a death in the family, yeah,
Oh yeah.
that can be super overwhelming. It can take over your entire life, but it's taking over your entire life because you've taken your focus off of this distant focal point in the future, whether it be faith, whether it be your goals in life, and you've taken your focus off this focal point and you've brought it down into the foreground right in front of you in this thing that you're going through right now that's depressing you. And when you do that, now everything else is blurry, right? Now those mountains in the background, your family over here, your other passion projects, your hobbies, all of these other things around you are blurry because you've got this laser focus on this one thing that may be depressing you. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be focused on it, and I'm not saying that it's a problem. I think it's great to take a step back, like you said, think about something like faith and say, hold on, my focus is wrong right now. I'm focusing on this one thing that's depressing me, but all this other great stuff in my life, my faith, my family, my friends, it's all blurry because I'm just so dead focused on this one thing. I mean, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I agree with you. I think that when you get depressed, you lose sight of everything else. If I understand what you're saying, I
Yeah.
think you do lose everything else. But what I say about faith, and I just it's not. I'm not saying the Catholic faith is any better than any other faith, because I think people, if they believe in God, that's all they have to do, you know. And so many faiths are alike. But I think faith gives you the tools. I don't care if it's a Catholic faith or anyone faith, that they have the tools to solve their problems. I found if with a person without faith, they're lost. I don't care whether it's Catholic or Jewish or whatever, but they have to have something stronger than themselves or believe in something on themselves. And I'm fortunate because I found that it's helped me so many times overcome problems.
Yeah.
And but I know there's many people with other faiths, they can do the same thing, but
Yeah,
they
well,
have to have.
I think it's exciting too because, one of the best things about faith is just this passage of stories over time, right? And when you're talking about any of these religions, I love the fact that it's storytelling. It's storytelling. And I think that's really powerful because people learn from stories. And it's
Mhm.
why I wanted to have this kind of podcast format in terms of having people tell their story because I think it's the best way to learn. I think you learn from other people's mistakes and triumphs. And I think when you kind of reflect back on your own, you can take inspiration from your own mistakes and from your own triumphs. And I think storytelling is powerful in that regard, and I think people kind of really embrace that about religion in terms of this passage of stories over time that have these moral lessons. And I think what you're talking about with these tools, the spoken language is a great way to take these tools and to infuse them into new people's lives.
Yeah, I think you're right when you say tools, because one of the things I told you back when I was 11 years old, I said, I will never get divorced. And I didn't know why. I didn't know how. I didn't know if I was ever going to get married. But when you say something, you had to find something that leads you to what your goal is. And
Mhm.
one of the faiths in the church is they concentrate on. When you get married, you're married for life,
Yeah.
and you don't get divorced. So I have learned from that. I've learned so much from that, hey, I got to be married for life. I better work problems out. I can't be fighting all the time, or you're going to have an awful long time before you die.
Yeah.
But and it helps you focus on what's important. I mean, I mean, there's times Graham and I we got mad at hell at each other, but we knew we better make up because we're going to be here a long time together, and
Yeah.
we do. And you get back into a harmonious relationship, but you've got to set your rules and say, I live by them,
Yeah.
and that.
Well, it's the same concept of this focal point in the future.
Yeah.
Because if you're focused on the future and you understand, hey, we have our entire lives together. We're gonna be together for how long were you guys married? 66 was it 60 years?
Well, me,
Yeah.
I was 68 years.
68 years. Jeez. 68 years we're gonna be married, right? And into the future beyond that. Well,
Yeah.
okay, if that's your focus, if that's your distant mountain that you're focused on, well then look, you're gonna argue. There's gonna be controversy. There's gonna be a lot of stuff that happens kind of throughout that marriage. But as long as you're
And you get
focused on
depressed a
that
lot.
distant point, then yeah, those little fights that you're gonna have, those are just road bumps on the way to the future. But if you take that focus off of that 68 years and you focus on the one thing that's happening in front of you, in my
Yeah.
case, a lot of times it's, did you do the dishes? Have we finished painting the house? Yeah,
Hmm.
that stuff is important. You have to get it done. But you can't lose sight of the fact that, 68 years from now you're still there together. So that's
Hmm.
I think it's a good kind of correlation. But so,
Well,
so yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the other thing you got to realize, you can't have marriage should be 100%. All right. If you have one at 50% and one at 100%, you're in trouble. You're not gonna make it. You got to be on the same page, and you have to work together and believe the things that each other believe, and help cultivate that into a solid relationship. And when a person gets depressed, they drop down from that scale of 100% to 100%. And that's very important. I see that so often on a depressed person. And you might be 100% positive, and you have a soulmate only 50%. How do you think that relationship's going to survive? You're going to be very depressed in that relationship. And
Mm.
so it's good to be able to know, or it's better to be able to recognize the difference and try to make the changes so you're both on the same page, or 100%, 100%. I'll tell you, you'll have a heck of a lot better marriage if you're 100% and 100%. And there'll be times you move up and down, but yeah, you get angry. Graham and I used to get angry, but we had a
Of
model.
course.
We never go to bed angry. Actually, we don't. I think of all the times in the 68 years, I probably only went to bed and your grandmother was angry at me for at least 2 days. But I don't think we ever gone over 2 or 3 days and our anger,
So
because we
what
knew it was ridiculous.
so how'd you fix that? So, because obviously you fight, right? How do you solve that
Well,
before you go to bed?
well, you try to work them out. And as I said in one of my books, I said that sometimes you can't come to an agreement. Oh, say, so what do? You got two choices. You can remain angry for the rest of your life, or just forget it. And you'll find out the anger was probably nothing in the first place. But you don't want to carry your anger through. And that's only what happens. You get to carry it when you're depressed or you are a negative thinker. If you can't get off the depression helps you get off the negativity. And that once you get that back onto a positive outlook, your whole life changes. But if you've got a negative person and a depressed person, it's going to be difficult.
So find a positive person.
Yeah. Well, you can't find them now. You got to help make a person positive. You got to help with what you got to find out what upsets them, and it's probably me or my wife. And so I either have to change or live someone that's going to be very upset with me. And but sometimes you just got to say, "Hey, it's not worth it. We can find happiness." But that's hard for a negative person to do that. A positive person can forget things unbelievable. So that's one of the measures of a positive person. Are you able to adjust to negativity
Yeah, so that's a good question.
and help the person become positive? Because you're going to have a lot of depression, and especially hard for a negative person. They have much more than a positive person. I've seen this so much with people that are negative, have a lot of depression.
Yeah.
And but death does make a person depressed. And I've seen a lot of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's in the family, it's friends and everything. And but you got to learn to deal with it. And it's not that difficult, really. And the
Yeah,
way you deal
not
with
when you have the tools, right? And I think that's a
it,
key.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's a key.
And there are four of them right there. I mentioned four of them. They're
You've given
there.
them to us. You've given them to us. Yeah. So
Yeah,
for
that's so.
so
And that has been helpful to me. I mean, my 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 relatives especially. I didn't put as much emphasis on them as really is necessary because relatives make a big change in your life. I know you I like you. I mean, I look at you as an example of some of the gifts that you have. And one of them is writing. I love your writing. It's amazing. And you have the gift. I wish I
well,
had it, but you have
you're the author. um,
it. No,
but so you bring up family, relatives, right? So obviously, people come from different family backgrounds. Uh,
yeah.
tell me about, so you get married to grandma, and you decide that you're gonna have a family. How'd uh, how'd that kind of happen?
Well,
And
I just wrote the book on the love of my life. I don't know if you read it, but it defines me meeting grandma and falling in love with her, going on a crazy honeymoon, and how we build our life together. And she has been very supportive. In fact, I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for grandma and my faith. And I'll tell you, because she was very strong in her faith, and her mother and father was. But we learn how to live together and not let ourselves get trapped into negativity. And sometimes it's hard, but death can make it a terrible, terrible chore for you. And we all experience it, but we all can overcome it. But we have to think positive and become positive. You'll never overcome negativity. I mean, like a death of someone, if you don't have a positive outlook. You have
yeah,
to have a positive outlook. You have to believe that things will get better, and they do if you make them. But only you can make them better. And
yeah,
I felt
and
that I a lot of times myself, I can't. I don't know if I can do it, but if I want to be positive, I got to do it.
yeah, and look, it's good to hear. It's good to hear that you experience it too, right? You're not just saying, you can do it, and you're just not feeling these
Yeah, I know what
emotions,
you're saying.
right? Like you have the emotions, you feel them, you have overcome them. And look, this has
Yeah,
been, and if anyone can sit here and have this conversation, it's you. This has been, in terms of the last 13 months, you've gone through a lot. You lost your wife of 68 years last December. Um, you then sold the house that you raised a family in and lived in
hmm
for the entire, 60, probably 7 years, because I think you moved in a year after you got married, or but
yeah.
six, 60 something years.
We got I think it was two and a half years after we were married.
Yeah, so
We lived
60,
we were living in
60.
an apartment, and I started having kids, and I had my son sleeping on the couch, and I
Yeah.
slept on the floor next to him.
Yeah, so you sell your house that you've raised your family in for 65 years, 65 plus years, and then you move into a new, an apartment, an assisted living center, literally as COVID comes. So you go
Yeah,
from seeing your family every day, doing all these amazing things, losing your wife, moving out of your house, moving into assisted living, and then being quarantined.
yeah.
And then not only that, which is already hard enough, befriending an amazing woman, um, and then having your neighbor of 65 years move in,
No, he's only
with you
27
a couple months later, and then
years.
losing
Yeah, he was
both of
only
them in
27.
the past couple months.
Yeah,
So you've
he was
okay,
27 years.
okay. So yeah, so
Yeah.
your best friend. So you use a wife, your new best friend at your new place, and your best friend of 27 years, all in one
Mhm.
year. It's the fact that you can sit here with a smile on your face is it says a lot to the power of your message, though. And I
Yeah,
think that power of positivity is great, and I think
important.
it's important. It's great to see that it works for you, and I think it's a great tool for other people. So let's talk about family. So you have 4 kids, right?
Yep.
Girl, boy, boy, girl,
Hmm.
and I mean, you guys did everything together. You were
Oh
working,
yeah.
and Grandma
We
stayed home,
traveled.
and
Very fortunate. We were travel. We go to Florida,
mhm.
and I didn't realize how well we were off. And but it was that people that helped make it. My wife, my kids, and family to me is the most important thing. There's nothing more important to me than my family, the whole family. And I'll tell you, I would die for anyone for a minute, for without a hesitation. And that's true love. If you love someone, you're ready to die for them. That's love. And I'm proud to say that I would do that for my family, and I think my family might even do that to me.
I
But
think so.
the important thing is that I love them. And I don't care if they ever get mad at me, if they don't like me, they don't like my stories. That's okay. I don't care. I'll always love them. I'll never stop loving them. And I want them to know, as I told them so many times, when I got married, they will never have to worry about their mother and I getting divorced, because I wanted to promise them the family I never had. And I think I did it, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah. So you wanted at 11 years old, you knew you were not going to get
11 years
divorced.
old.
Did you ever think about at that young age, or even before or after then, before meeting Grandma, did you think about having kids? I mean, was that something that you always wanted to have, or?
Nope. Nope. I didn't think I was going to get married. I didn't even think I was ever going to get married after my mother and father got divorced. And that stuck with me for all those years until I met the right woman. And she was the right woman. And I think I really did. I developed my positivity from my stepmother, of all people. I had to go live with them in Florida. And I didn't care too much for my stepmother because I thought she was the problem of the divorce. But it really wasn't. It was my father. And she became my best friend. She brought me up like I was her own. And in the morning, she was the most positive person I've ever met in my life. Never when anyone, no matter how bad things were, she was positive. I used to call her Jessie the racehorse because she's always walking up proud. And we lived in almost like a shack. And she would always say, she would not say, why me? She would always say, why not me? And I wrote about that so many times. And that's a positive person. When someone can say, why not me? That makes a difference. And I think I got her positivity. It's something I'll treasure all my life, and I'll never regret it. But she was the one that gave me my positivity. And
Yeah.
she never complained. She never complained.
I mean, when did you meet her? Because if they got divorced when you were
I
11.
was, let me see, I lived with them for 5 years. I went down to Florida. Oh yeah, I went to Florida when I was 13 years old. 13. I was getting in trouble, and I lived at the hillside home, and they wanted me to go out. I was hanging around the older guys. They wanted me to go out and steal a car. I said, okay, let's go out. We'll go down. We'll go pick one up at Sears and Roebuck's. So we're walking down to Sears and Roebuck's, and my sister and her husband lived on a street right across the street from Sears. It was this. Oh, I can't remember the name.
That's
But
right.
anyhow, I said, "Oh, I'm going to go around and see my sister." They said, "You're going to do what?" I said, "I'm going around with my sister." "No, you can't. We're going to go steal a car." I said, "No, I'm going out to see my sister." So I went down and see my sister. Now here I'm younger than him, and it took a lot of guts to tell the big guys. They all went home too. They didn't go steal a car. So I saved someone from doing it. I went to my sister's. I told my sister and brother. They said, "What are you doing here?" "We're going to go steal a car." They says, "Oh no, my God, no." So they had a little talk, and they called my mother, and they says, "He's got to go down and live with Dad. You got to get away from the hillside home."
Man.
And so they sent me down hillside home, and it was the best move I ever made. I'd probably be in jail. It wasn't now, but that's when my life started changing. Really did.
Well, it's amazing to
And
think about. It's amazing to think about how a simple act or a simple decision can change the course of your life. I mean, here you are,
it did.
here you
That
are
was
with these older friends who you're living with at this boarding home, and they're a
mhm.
terrible influence, and they're trying to get you to do these things that you might not. I mean, look, it sounds like you're somewhat comfortable with it. You're going with them. But you make this decision. You make this decision and say, hey, oh, my sister's over here. I'm just gonna swing by here on the way to stealing the car,
Yeah.
and a
I should
quick
have
a
invited them
quick
all
decision like
over.
that. Yeah, quick decision like that. I mean, it makes all the difference in the world for you. You could have
Oh, it did.
you could have got
It did.
arrested. You could have look.
Oh, sure. I
Someone
would
could
have
have
got
came out
it.
who owned a car and shot you. You don't
Yeah.
know what that situation could have been, and this who knows if it was this divine intervention or just some moral compass
I
in
feel like,
you.
well, I didn't have any religion to speak of at that time. I've been all kinds of religions, and uh, like I said, I've been very fortunate, and it's helped something give me a better outlook on life. I think of
Mm.
how so many stupid things I've done, and I got a whole book of them, but I'm glad that I survived them because I've been very happy. I'm even now, even without my wife and all my friends, I'm happy. I won't let myself get negative. It's a wonderful feeling, I'll tell you. And
That's
but I mean, I get
because
negative.
look, I think that's because you are anxious and excited to get out of there and come have a Manhattan with me.
Oh, I think about it every night. Oh,
I
you
was
make the
gonna I
best
was
man.
gonna pour myself one to have with you on this call,
Oh,
and I said, you
you
know
kill
what?
me.
It's just gonna be rubbing it in.
I
He's
know
not
it.
gonna be happy about that. But I do have
Well, I like to have
grandma's.
a glass of wine
Yeah, yeah.
and
I was gonna say I have grandma's sauce
glass
cooking on the stove right now too. So,
of
but
you're cooking on the stove?
yeah. Well, I'm not. I mean, not physically right now, but it's sitting right there for the whole day.
Oh yeah.
So the
Well,
kids
I'll
love
tell
it.
you that book that you wrote, or not that you wrote, that you what was that you developed of grandma. Everyone, I got it right up here on the counter, and everybody comes in and they say that's the most beautiful book, and I appreciate it, Ryan. I mean, you did a beautiful job. You've done so many good things. I look up to you too. I look up to you,
That's because
and I
I've had a
mean,
good influence.
your family. You got a beautiful family. I've never seen a family so well adjusted as your family, and I'm not just saying that. I mean, I never heard you and your wife ever say or yell at them. You take them by, you explain it to them, and that. I'm so proud of that, and you should be proud of it too. And I know you
Yeah.
are.
Well,
But you have.
again, I think it goes to speaking about role models. And we grew up. Look, we're very fortunate. We had role models like you and grandma. We had role models like mom and dad, and we
Yeah.
grew up in houses where there. First of all, there was no capital punishment. I was never hit, not once. Now,
Okay, that's great.
dad did come in and whip that belt, and I'd hide under the bed. He never touched me with the belt, but it was loud. It was loud. But
Well, that's good.
yeah, but I understood, I think, that they cared about me. And I think
Well,
when
yeah.
you use capital punishment in terms of trying to teach a child a lesson, I think they lose sight of the fact that even if you're trying to teach them this lesson, the act of teaching it isn't isn't the right way. And I think
No.
they lose the point of the lesson when they're being physically hit or spanked for something. I think it's much more meaningful to connect at this deeper level, look them in their eyes and say, "Do you understand what's going on here?" And look, it's much worse for the kids
Yeah,
in
I
terms
know
of
it
they
is.
don't want to do that. They're hurt more by the fact that if they respect
Exactly.
you, that disappointment is so much worse than physical pain that lasts, you know, a brief
Yeah.
couple minutes,
You're
right?
right, right.
And I
I
think
know.
it's a more profound thing. And I think because I respected my parents and because I saw the way that they treated me and the way that you treated them and dad's parents treated him, I think we learned that there's ways to teach lessons without just screaming and hitting. Um, and look, I lose my temper like anyone else, and I've yelled at the kids, and Lisa's yelled at the kids, and I guarantee if you ask them, they would think that we scream at them constantly, But
Well,
but it's a
look at
conscious,
that.
yeah, it's a conscious decision. It is, and it's something. It goes back to what you were saying earlier about being on the same page, and I think that was something where, first of all, also pre-Cana with the classes that you take to get married in the Catholic Church, it forces you to have these conversations. So going through those pre-Cana classes, Lisa and I took that very seriously. We said, okay, well, if we're going to get married and commit to ourselves and to each other along, hopefully 68 plus years of marriage, then we want to make sure we're on the same page and we want to make sure that we're moving in the same direction. And those classes really did a very good job of preparing us for that because we could say, okay, well, what do you believe about this? And the framework of that class was very much asking those questions. What do you think about spanking? What do you think about um, anything in terms of rearing children? And a lot of it was parenting based, but also just thoughts on life and faith, and it still was a Catholic thing. So, but yeah, having those
Well,
conversations before you get married, I think, is really important because then again, that focus is a very clear focus of where you want to be in terms of 68 years from now when we're sitting in those rockers together. What was our life like? Everything else was a blur. We had this in mind, and we were able to accomplish that because that was our focus.
that's important, right? And I see that so many times with you and your family. And I think that that's something you can be very proud of because you shouldn't have to hit your kids. By explaining to them means more for them. And I think you're right. It hurts them more than spanking them.
Hmm.
And it keeps you a better person too. And it helps you dealing with your wife and all your relatives. And it's important. But it's I marvel over your family. I think they're a beautiful family, and I always respected them and so proud of what you have accomplished. And I can't wait to get your book.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see how long that's going to take. But I do want to talk
Uh,
about. I do want to talk a little bit about writing, because it's been really important to you.
oh, it's,
Why do you write?
why do I write? That's a good question. It keeps my mind active, and physically, I'm not very good at anything, but I love to write. I love to talk about things that are important to me, and I've written quite a lot of books and things like, not books, really, journals, and I'm proud of them because I take a subject and I say that someday maybe my kids will learn from this what I've learned, and I'm proud of it, and it helps me concentrate on the person I want to be. And I think I don't give myself an opportunity to get depressed because I'm writing about something and I'm learning something when I write it. And I've been now with Story Word, I've been giving a lot of those to the family, like
Mm-hmm.
understanding depression, because I really should have done that sooner. And I think it would have helped like Jackie and your mother and all of you, uh, because it helped me tremendously. It helped
Yeah.
me be the person I want to be.
Yeah, and to clarify what you're talking about too, so this past year when you went into your new home, um, Courtney, one of our cousins, had this great idea and said, "Let's sign Grandpa up for this company or this project called Storyworth." And
Mm-hmm.
what it is every week, someone, whether it be this company or someone in the family, sends a topic to you or a question. And what you do is you, over the course of the week, you write out your answer to the question, you put it into the system, and it gets sent out to everybody that's on the mailing list. And it's really cool. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like this online journal. Technically, really what it is it's a blog, which you may not even know about, but people have these blogs where they write about all these different topics and they put them online, and people can go and read them, and it's like this online journal, right? And it's a really cool way for us to see what's going on with you and to understand kind of your life's work and what you put your time and effort into understanding. And it's really cool to see these stories and have them sent out. I would encourage it for anybody that's looking for to better understand someone they love, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. But also, it's been this phenomenal experience for you. You're locked up in a room in your new place. You can't even leave sometimes because they have to quarantine everyone because of COVID. So you might spend 14 days without being able to leave your room. And at least it gives you something to do, and not only something to do, but something engaging, other than sitting there
Mm-hmm.
watching, your favorite Hallmark Christmas movies every night with a glass of wine, which also keeps
Well,
you
I don't
happy,
do it
though.
during the day. I'm too busy during the day. I write all day long, but it is fun. It is. They come up with some beautiful questions, and I enjoy it. And like every one of them, I enjoy them. I've only about three or four that I haven't answered, but then I'll throw in one. I'll ask myself a question, like, how do you keep from getting depressed? And I thought that's how I stuck that one in.
Nice. I like that. Sometimes you just got to give it to them straight. You didn't ask me.
Yep.
We have this phrase because I sell orthopedic devices in the operating room, and the doctor always says when he's sitting there and he's working on something and he puts his hand out and he might say something, right, a scalpel, and the nurse will hand him a scalpel and he'll look at it and he's like, oh, it's not what I wanted. So they always use this phrase, give me what I want, not what I asked for. And so that's what you're doing. You're giving us what
Yeah,
we
that's a
we
good. That's
need.
good. That's a good.
Yeah, not
An-
not what we're
That's
asking
a
for.
good analogy.
So
Don't give
no,
me
that's
what I want. Give me what I should have.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. But look,
that's very good, Ryan.
you're the one who's inspired me to do this, to start writing. Because you shared your story with me, and it was such a phenomenal thing for me to say, I didn't know a lot of this stuff about you. And I'd love to be able to pass this on to my
Oh,
kids
I
and
hope. Yeah.
grandkids someday and share my story and share just
Well,
some of the things I thought. So,
oh, you want it before I die? I want to see it.
well, that's the goal.
No,
That is the goal.
yeah, well, it is. It is. I tell you, because I've seen some of your writings already, and they're phenomenal. You got the gift on. I'll tell you. And Lisa, she's got the gift. Oh, she's really. I can't understand half the words she uses, but she's great.
No, yeah, my
It's,
wife is
it, oh,
she's
I
much
think it'll be.
smarter, better looking, classier. version of me.
Well, I'll
But
have to admit, I'll agree with you. I won't give you an argument.
I
No,
outkicked
you
my
both are
coverage.
very,
But
you're very talented. I'm telling you,
it
it's,
runs in the
you know,
family.
what's something about writing. I think by writing, you include other people. And that's what we have to do. We have to include each other in our lives. And if you don't include everybody, and if you don't love everybody in your life, then you're a very sad person. I love everybody. I even love my enemies, you know that? And I love my enemies. And it makes you feel a better person. And this is how I can deal with the problems that are faced with me daily. Uh, I love it here. As long as I can eat and write, I'll be a happy man because they got great food here. I got to have my glass of wine at night.
Well, I know that food is a big part of your life, and
It's just a,
no one puts down food like Grandpa at a dinner. There, it's just heaps on heaps. It's amazing your
well,
ability to eat
amazing food.
and maintain a normal weight. Honestly, so
Well,
I have
I,
so we could go on forever and ever and ever and ever. And we should do this. I mean, look, we should do this once a week anyway. But two questions, random questions, just to get your opinion on them. One is favorite book of all time.
they what?
What's your favorite book of all time?
Trap Lines North was one of my first books I read. When I went to Hilton, I never read books. I started reading books. I read 100 in that 1 year that was at Hilton. And Trap Lines North, all books mostly were about the North and in the wildlife. Uh, but the best book I ever wrote was the Bible. I read that, and it was interesting. And the one that I got really the one that I really it was a written. I think I sent it to everybody, and it's Understanding Jesus. And I read that, and that was a beautiful
Yeah.
Bible, and not a Bible, but that was a beautiful book. But I am. You might consider me over religious, but I don't think you ever get over religious. It's how you handle it, and you don't shove it in everyone's face and try to make them think you got to believe this way or you got to believe that way. That's not my purpose. I just like to bring things to my family that have helped me, and I hope they read it that way. That it's something that I hope will help them, and that's so important to me. And most of my books I wrote are kind of books that would help you go that way. It's helped me. It helps me to write them, and
Yeah.
I don't get depressed, and I'm happy all the time. I smile all the time, and I love life.
So
That's all.
so you're happy. You love
Yeah,
life. Who, if you could have a drink with anyone, dead or alive, sit down for a happy hour, who would it be?
probably you, because you make the best man hands.
I
Let
will
me see.
take that. I love that answer, first of all. And you would be on the short list for me as well. So that is, I love it. I love it.
I know I'm sorry it took all your time up today,
No,
but
no,
this
one more question, okay?
one more.
One more. I said two, I meant three. I know. I can't, look, I can't count.
That's right. I
So,
put three up there, but I'm not sure if it's two or three like that. Go on. What's your question?
so last one is, look, you've written an autobiography, but I don't think it had a subtitle. If you were to create the perfect subtitle for your autobiography, Sherman Montgomery, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question, Ryan. That's a very good question. I would think Sherman Montgomery, uh, that he grew up learning how to have a better life.
I
I
love it.
think that helped me realize all the crazy things I did, and So when I went and met my wife, and she helped me become the person I really wanted to become. So I think that the story would be, I could think, I got to think of a title. Just give me a second here.
You think? That's not bad, though. Sherman Montgomery, growing up. What'd you say? Growing up, learning how to live a better life. That's what it was.
Like, yeah.
Sherman
And
Montgomery.
that's
Growing
really,
up, learning how to live a better life. What's good?
I think that's a pretty good one, because that's true. Because I didn't really have much of a life growing up as a kid. But my life changed so much between meeting my wife and my faith. And that has made me more successful. I've had an awful lot of breaks, so I've got to admit that even before, well, I think the service was the biggest thing to make me into a man. And I was a mixed up kid, didn't know up from down, but you have to learn rules and regulations in life. And the service taught me those. I mean, I learned as a crash rescue fireman in the Air Force that you would have someone die for you. If I was ever trapped in a fire, I know my fellow firemen would die trying to get me out of there. And that was something we all developed. I have that in myself now. And I would do that for them too. And I think that taught me in the service the kind of life you want to lead, to die for someone, to love someone. And you can't love somebody unless you're willing to die for them, really love them. And I say my family, I'd die for any one of them in a heartbeat. I love them all, and that's my life. That's why I can be happy.
How about this then? Sherman Montgomery. Faith, family, friends, fortitude. That sounds good, right?
Yeah, that's good. I think maybe I don't want to be conceited, but I think it does define how I feel.
I don't think it's conceited.
And,
I think it's honest.
because of it, I become and can stay a happy person. Love everybody. I love you, Ryan. You have a good day. See me in Manhattan, will you?
Oh, I can't wait till we can have it together. I can't wait. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for. And you'll have to play it back to me sometime and let me see what it looks like. I'll never do it again.
No, look. So, all right. How about